name is Minister Roderick Pass. I'm a member here at New Hope where I'm an associate minister. Let us pray and open up. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Lord, we give you all honor and glory. We thank you. We thank you for this opportunity to share information, to learn about what's going on in the community. We thank you for the leadership being given this evening. We thank you for all those in attendance. Father God, we ask that you bless, God, and be with us. Bestow upon us knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and discernment, that you may be glorified this evening, that you may be in the midst, Father God, and that we may receive a word on high that will give us guidance as to how to move forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. All right, and again, so my name is Kobe Riley. I'm the Deputy Director for Greensboro Parks and Recreation. So this evening, myself and my colleague, Richard Lovett, with the Office of Sustainability and Resilience with the city, will share some information. But before we begin, I want to definitely recognize and thank you all for being here. Our council members that are here present, Councilwoman Black, Councilwoman Crawford, as well as a former councilwoman that's in attendance as well. I say that just to say it underscores the importance of what is going on this evening. And so what we're going to do this evening is go over the remedial action plan for the Bingham Park remediation. And so as you know, Bingham Park is just a stone's throw down the street. And what we're talking about this evening is going to be what the plan is to eventually get to full remediation for the facility, for both the Bingham Park property as well as the Hampton side. And so we're going to go through just a little bit of history to catch everybody up, because different individuals come from, this may be someone's first time hearing about it. It may be some of our others' 100th time hearing about it, because we have had continuous conversations about this project for a number of years, because it underscores the importance of it. And so we're going to go through a little bit of history, catch everybody up so we're all on the same foundation, and then talk about what those next steps look like and what the actual project will entail. And so for those technical and specific type things, Rich is going to share, and I'm going to go over the overview here.
Good evening. The remedial action work plan that was put forward, all the investigation leading up to this was conducted by the NCDEQ over the past probably about 10 plus years. Doing a full assessment based on the state's current guidelines, they assessed the properties to determine the magnitude and extent of the contamination. The original plan was that DEQ proposed was to just cap and cover the entire park. Clean up around the stream, move that stuff up on the Bingham Park, and then just cap and cover, which really had no benefit to the community. So after a little pushing and shoving, so to speak, the state has agreed to let us kind of manage this. It's the first time that the state has actually relinquished remedial control of a pre-regulatory landfill site in their history. So this is new ground for them, and hopefully we can get a better product because we're interfacing directly with the community and we know the needs and wants. So what we did was we had a certain amount of resources, and based on that we had CDM Smith develop a remedial action plan to do full remediation of the Bingham Park, the Hampton School site. Full remediation, lost it, there we go. Full remediation of around the stream and consolidation of some waste on site. And some of the drawings, this is a good example, and you'll see some later on, where when we say full remediation, that material is being taken off-site and taken to Great Oak landfill down in Ashboro. The White Street landfill was removed from consideration back in 2024, and we have negotiated with Waste Management to allow us to take the waste to that landfill, which is a properly regulated landfill for final disposal. The area around Bingham Park, the creek and both sides will be fully remediated, and around the perimeter of the park will be fully remediated with off-site disposal. Then there's going to be some other areas, so all the areas in green, okay, are going to be fully remediated with off-site disposal. The areas in yellow are going to be excavated and consolidated into the middle. Now there's been some talk of some other things, and we'll get to that, but the remedial action work plan is kind of focused on this. We can always modify it and advance it to do more remediation, but we have to have a work plan in place to address a lot of the concerns on site. So when we came up with the remedial action work plan, it was actually to take the yellow and consolidate it into the middle and then cap and cover just that pink area. Everything else is unrestricted use. It can be used for anything the city and the community wish, with no restrictions and no health concerns. The area in the middle here can be used as passive spaces, like for walking trails, picnics, things like that, as long as you don't have any type of penetration into the ground, because the cap material is about 12 to 18 inches thick on top of a liner material. So you can't have trees, you can't have bushes, so this really represents a challenge for a park. So like I said, the initial plan was to basically take the existing grade. This is what the park looks like if you're at Bingham Street over to English, thank you. And what we would be doing is taking the yellow, placing it on top. So in theory, this is what it would kind of look like. There would be an area in the middle where there would be no major vegetation other than grass and wildflowers and pollinator gardens and things like that. But the area around and there will be a path put in by the creek that will be fully remediated, and same with the Hampton School site. So after all that material is moved, you're going to have a big kind of hill on the site. Having conversations with the current council members, what our new goal is to basically try to take the mound away and fully remediate that too. So we want you to be able to see from English to Bingham Street without the big hill, in the way. So that's kind of phase 2. Phase 1 is this plan here. Phase 2 is basically lopping off this and fully remediating that, taking it off-site for permanent disposal. Now, the community, during our initial meetings, they really wanted more, they wanted a path forward towards full remediation. So we kind of came up with this phased approach where phase 1 is the original remedial action work plan. Phase 2 is removing the mountain, so to speak. And then phase 3 is, do we have it? It's later? Well, okay. Well, then I'll talk about that in a little bit. So currently we have $17 million. That's coming from a couple different sources. $10 million is from a legislative grant that was given to the city, and $7 million NCDEQ has given to us as a reimbursement. So as we do activities, they will reimburse up to $7 million. We were also able to get some federal funds. This unfortunately cannot be used during the remediation. It has to be used for the park development after remediation is completed. And there's some federal legal reasons why you can't use it on contaminated property or around contaminated property. So once we get it fully remediated, those funds will be able to be used for the rehabilitation and restoration of the park. The city has also said that they're going to promise approximately $5 million initially, and then there's hopefully a future conduit of funding, either public and private and partnerships, to get us to where we need to get full remediation. So what are you going to expect as we do all this? The workday is from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's per city ordinance. You're expecting anywhere between 10 and 50 dump trucks going through the community while we're removing the soil from the site. We have 5 construction entrances, I think, projected. Only 1 is going to be open at any given time. We are minimizing the area that we're disturbing to reduce the potential for any type of contamination leaving the site so we can manage it from a health and safety perspective. So no more than 100 by 100 foot area is going to be remediated at any given time. That's one of the reasons why it's going to take a little longer than if we were able to go in there and just start digging and hauling. We're trying to be very mindful because this is a very community-centered remediation project. We don't want any type of potential exposures to get into the community. The truck routes are depicted on one of the drawings. I think that's over here. You can take a look at it at your leisure after the presentation. Like I said, only 1 access way will be open at any given time. Each of those access ways are going to have a truck wash station, and they're going to be monitored for any type of material so it doesn't fall off the vehicle as it's driving through the community. Also, the waste in the trucks are going to be what I call kind of burritoed. It's going to be having a plastic liner inside the truck. The dump truck will be filled, and then the plastic will cover it, and then you have the dust tarp that goes over top of your traditional dump trucks. And we're also going to be doing continuous air monitoring while there's any work on site. And this is on the site itself, so we can shut down operations if we have any potential for contamination to spread, so it stays within the site. We don't want it to leave and get into the community. Our timeline, we're kind of right in this area here. We're about to have the bid packages getting released or in the process of being reviewed. DEQ has to have 1 public comment period. During their public comment period, I'm just preparing everybody, they do not answer questions. They take the questions and then they respond at a later date. So don't expect, if you have questions, that they're going to be willing to provide an answer at that time. That's why we're having a lot of these meetings, to try to get those questions addressed for you early so you don't have to sit there and wait for DEQ to respond. Once we get the bids, they'll be reviewed, and our remediation contractor, CDM Smith, and city staff will review them and select an approved contractor. That will then go before council for a vote and for approval and authorization. The contracts should be awarded before the end of June, we're hoping. And mobilization is expected to start like around September, and most likely the first shovel of dirt will be taken up last week of September, early October. And the completion for the first phase 1 of this plan is about 18 months, or February 2028. Now, we talked about phase 2 and beyond. So phase 2 is basically topping all that material off, again, taking it to a landfill for disposal. Phase 3 would be taking this portion of the landfill, digging down to bedrock or where there's no contamination, backfilling, so now you have everything except what's in pink as fully remediated. Phase 4 is basically the next third, and phase 5 is the last third. At this point, the park will be fully unrestricted. Parks and Rec can do whatever, and the community can do whatever they want on the site. My job is to get it to this stage so the community can actually have a blank slate to work with when it comes to their the future park. Each of those additional phases takes time. Roughly 6 months-ish per phase. So if we get full funding for everything, the park should be done by 2030. It's slow, and the reason for the slow, deliberate process is to make sure the community is not impacted and that there's no potential exposures, and to minimize any type of spread of contamination while we're digging the material up. So like I said, we're dealing with small pieces of the park at any given time, like 100 by 100 foot area. Next steps, well, we have the remedial action plan. It's in draft form. DEQ has approved it. We just have to have the public comment period before they finalize it. We're waiting on them to give us the date for the state-led meeting, and then the 45-day public comment period where people can actually mail in questions that can also be considered. During that period of time, we're going to have the bid documents out because we want to get this process moving. We can always modify the bids if the remedial action work plan changes. The contracting, it goes through an official bid process. Once the contractor's selected, like I said, it goes before council, and we're currently in the process of trying to secure a 2-year extension to the state funds that we received because they are due to sunset on June 30th. We're pretty confident that we can get that either the contract in place or to get the funds extended so we don't risk any of that funding moving forward. The phases can be incorporated into those bid documents as a typical change order that would then have to go before council. And then, like I say, phases 2 through 5 towards full remediation, they have to go through council, but they do have the council's support right now. That is our goal. And then ongoing exploration, we're currently looking at potential opportunities for public and private partnerships to actually generate funds to continue the remediation moving forward. And that's pretty much all I have, and I'll turn it back over to Kobe.
All right, thanks, Richard. So everybody, this is so the piece that I really want to share here is that we want to underscore is that we've never been closer to hitting a final destination than before. Through council direction, like Richard just said a second ago, through council's direction at present, they've already discussed where we're starting is not where we're going to finish right now. The original starting point, like Richard just said, was to have the mountain, and that wasn't going to be enough. So that's going to immediately go away through council's administrative decision to add $5 million immediately. So originally the remediation action plan was going to kind of stop at phase one. It was just going to cap and cover. There was going to be a mountain in the middle. Now that's going to be, at present, that's going to be where it's completely leveled, basically, during the remediation project, and then that will allow council to continue that through each successive budget season to fundraise, to allocate resources, and for the community to weigh in on what those look like. And so, this is the piece where I don't want to take any shine or take responsibility for the decisions that they've made, but I asked Councilwoman Black if she wanted to weigh in on that.
Tag. For stages 3 through 5, we are in negotiations with public and private partners. The first phase will be 18 months. So we have 18 months from today to start that negotiation of how we will garner the financial support for 3, 4, and 5. I'm very confident now that we probably have 3 taken care of, but I don't want to speak too soon. I want to bring good, definite news to you as we move along. So I told Pat that we'll probably have these continuous meetings so that you are brought abreast to where we're at financially. But right now, council is working on stage 3. So we have answered the call for getting phases 1 and 2, which they were going to take that soil, put it on top in the center, which was the stage 2 soil. Now we've committed $5 million right away to have that removed. Stages 3 and 4, we're having talks now about how we will mitigate that. Each phase takes 6 months. So we have 6 months of work to do each time to get ahead of the process. And I think we're really doing good at this point. But I feel like stage 3, you will hear some good news about it before we break ground. And then we'll move forward with stages 4 and 5. But council is very committed to getting to stage 5. And we are excited about working with you all to see what the possibilities of Bingham Park can be after it's fully remediated.
Thank you. And everybody, just so, and this is a project that is important, and people that live in this area, is important to you all. But what is just said right there, I hope everybody takes that away. Like Richard said, this has never been done in the state of North Carolina. There are over 600 pre-regulatory landfills that we know about, right? So there are, as far, Johnston County, Guilford County, Mecklenburg County, Durham County, Wake County, right? They're all over these sites, over 600 of these. And the state's cure for it is reasonable, but communities have just taken it, right? They have just came in, cap, cover, and move on. But this community said that wasn't enough. And so now we heard, Councilman Black just said, we have an opportunity to do something that hasn't been done before. We can in effect right a historic wrong, right? And that's important, everybody. And so we want your partnership, we want your perspectives, and we want your time and patience too, because it started in 1922 and we're 2026. And we were on a meeting, many people in this call, in 2022, the very same day, 100 years to the date, we were on a call saying that we've got to get this right. And thankfully, we're moving toward that way. So I would just share that perspective and then offer it up to anybody if there are any questions, right? If you heard something.
And I wanted to follow up because in our first meeting, there was a couple of questions. One was about notification, that folks wanted a notification set up to where you would have to register for it, but it would give you kind of some immediate updates on the process, or if something went wrong, which we don't think anything will, that you would have some kind of emergency notification. So we are working with IT to make that happen, just so you'll know that as closer we get to September, you may hear about a registration process for that lives in the community. What was that? The other question that we had was about Hampton school property. We are in discussions about that, but I heard what you said, I heard what you asked, and I have taken those asks to the table, and hopefully we may have some information with you on our next follow-up.
All right. So now, thank you. This is an opportunity that if anyone has any questions or concerns, please share those, and we will get them down.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I thank you all so much. Nice to see you again. And to the ladies, thank you for joining us as well. I'm glad that more parks people showed up because we did have some very pressing questions. One of my concerns or questions would be regarding the NCDEQ standards, right? So we understand that NCDEQ has their own standard of things and they have levels and limitations. However, history has shown that oftentimes when we let majority speak for us, we don't get what we need directly as a constituency. So I'm asking, will we be following just their standards? Because 400 milligrams of lead, in my opinion, is still a lot. Will we be following stricter protocols? I believe once water contamination and air contamination has become a factor, we can take it down to 100 milligrams of standard according to the NCDEQ website. So will we be applying stricter standards for habitation, specifically regarding the fact that people have been living in this community? I grew up in the Grove. So people have been living in this community since the start of this issue, and it has been classified as environmental racism, what happened to these constituents. So will we have stricter protocols with these contractors if we say we're going to excavate, not cap and cover this contaminated soil? Thank you.
All the samples, once an excavation is completed, we have to do sampling to confirm that all the soil, any soil remaining, some of these areas we're actually going to bedrock. Okay, so there will be no soil left. It'll be just hard bedrock, and then we'll be filling on top of that. Around the margins, meaning around the perimeter where that waste kind of tails out to native material, all of that will also be sampled to confirm that we're getting to the state standards, and they're actually based on state and EPA risk levels, and this is the most restrictive risk level that's going to be applied to this site. The one thing that we don't have any indication based on testing that has been done by DEQ and us that no groundwater or surface water has been impacted by any type of this material kind of running off or eroding. It's very stable, and I caution I want it out, but from a physical characteristic perspective, it doesn't go anywhere really. So we're very fortunate in that regard. I know that the stream area has higher criteria because of terrestrial and aquatic exposure concerns and also potential leaching, but we've shown that the material doesn't leach, but we're also addressing those standards along the stream too. So I hope that we are getting to what you would feel comfortable with. We're dealing with federal and state criteria. That's what we're stuck with. That's also another reason why we are really pushing not to do the cap and cover. We never really wanted to do the cap and cover. That's what the state wanted because they're looking at a risk model and the biggest bang for their buck because they have 600 of these sites and they're balancing a limited budget across 600 sites. Right now, one of the concerns that we had early on in this is, are we going to lose the funding before Durham, they have 6 of these that they're dealing with. We actually have an agreement with DEQ right now to get the $7 million in reimbursement. They're doing cap and cover in Durham, so we're not.
All right. So we talk about safety. We talk about historically, we know how this plays out. I keep hearing, when funds are available, if they become available, it's kind of like if it doesn't, it doesn't work. But we talk. I'm hearing priority mismatch. I hear y'all want to build trust in the community, but you're not. First of all, dealing with the highly contaminated part first. Which, if you're talking about safety of community, it will make sense to deal with that than to deal with Hampton first.
The highest contamination is along the stream.
But on Bingham Park, right?
Yeah, which will be fully remediated.
If funds are available.
No, that's being done in phase 1. That's the second thing we do.
Okay, sorry. Bingham is not being fully remediated at first in phase 1. Hampton school site is, right?
Yes, because the amount of material at Hampton is significantly less, and based on trying to clean up as much as we possibly can to minimize the risk, that is
Which part is contaminated more?
they're about equal. There are some areas along the stream that are more contaminated at a higher concentration than the main portion of Bingham Park. Bingham itself has contamination at depth. The stream doesn't, because the stream is basically at bedrock. So there's less material that has to be removed from the stream, but some of those samples that were collected by DEQ were the highest along this margin right here, which is going to be fully remediated.
Sure.
The remainder of the concentrations on site are almost identical here as it is at Hampton School.
Okay, so they're both identical. So before you talked about Bingham being more contaminated, that was always the discussion in 27 feet or 24 feet, right?
27.
28. Oh, sorry. 28 feet. So it's kind of like you say build trust, but then I'm hearing different now, and I'm hearing that Hampton has the same contamination as Bingham. And
Well, the data's always been there, and we've never said that Hampton was less contaminated or more contaminated. When you do statistical analysis, it's all roughly the same concentration. There are some elevated spikes here and there, but on average, you're below what's called the hazardous level, where landfills can't take it. So it's highly variable across the entire site. What we're trying to do is get the easiest, quickest, and most comprehensive amount of material out for the biggest bang for our buck. And then we're left with a smaller portion that we can then go back and remediate at a later date.
so risk-wise, they're equal.
They're both this. I mean, if you go out to one and you go to the other, they have the same concerns. I mean, if it's 300 parts per million here and 250 parts per million there, that's at one location. You move 10 feet and they could switch. Statistically, they're almost identical because they came from the same source, and they were put in this park and on a portion of the Hampton school site.
So why is Hampton not closed off, but Bingham Park is?
So Hampton is a reformed construction project, and it's not a active location. So the property itself is not open, and it wasn't previously a park or anything like that. It was a school site, and that's been demolished, and so it was not set up to have the same use as Bingham Park was. But it is still in effect closed. I think there is a sign out there that does speak to that.
So why is that area not closed off and Bingham Park is? Even though use was different, I continuously see people crossing that fence. I hardly see people over there going over there. So if they're both Hampton.
That's the reason why you hardly see people going over there, because it's not there's something called an attractive nuisance, right? An attractive nuisance. Bingham is an attractive nuisance, being that people would gravitate, like you just said, people would gravitate to it, and so we have to put up measures, and why we have fencing, and that's why that's there. But
It's the same. So it's the same.
right.
The only difference maybe, and I'm gonna try to clarify this a little bit, the only difference is that the amount of waste that's exposed at the surface is more on Hampton School, sorry, on Hampton Park site than it is on Hampton School. There's still some residual overburden material which acts, kind of acts, an exposure barrier. That would be really the only difference between the two. But it's thin and it all needs to go.
Pastor Richmond from one of the charter members from New Hope Missionary Baptist Church and president of founder of New Hope Community Development Group. You all know my executive director well. From the time that we first started talking about this and we in the community first became aware of anything, okay, I think Parks and Rec and this gentleman's organization has come a long way. When we first started talking about it, I don't know whether I know you were here. I told you all that I would probably be dead and gone before you got anywhere near this point. Now I'm looking forward to getting to be 85 and seeing it getting to that point. This is a tremendous jump for this community. In another county, as you were talking about today, other counties have had harder time. It took them 36 years to get this far and get one building built. So I want to commend Parks and Rec, the New Hope Community Development Group, and my community over here on the fine way you stuck to it. So you can't get a job done being a quitter. And I think it's been great. The only question that I have is the stream. Now, I don't know as much as a lot of people do, but I was hoping that stream is going to be similar to what they did off of Wendover Avenue. The Corps of Engineers went in there and piped that water so it could be piped out. Is that what you're doing? You got a tributary there?
So we have two artist renditions of what it will look like after. This is an example of one. So all the material has to be removed and the banks have to be stabilized because they erode over time, and we're trying to stabilize the whole park area so that you have a walking trail next to the park or next to the stream. So this is all going to be re-engineered, and there's going to be native plants, native to North Carolina, put on both sides, and trees put back in place to kind of restore it to its original natural condition, but stabilize it in a way that the community can actually use and walk around and enjoy the park.
And that looks good. That's excellent, because we have a similar situation over on Whittington Street, and a private resident put in his own tributary to run the water like that. Okay, so it runs clean, and you don't have a problem with. It doesn't look like you don't have a problem with people falling over in there, because you got the boundaries in there. So you did a great job, but that's a great rendition. I can't wait to see the completion. And you said in phase 4, the timeline is that August 29? Timeline for finishing phase 4 will be around
Phase 4, roughly
2029.
August 29. This is assuming continuous funding throughout the remedial process.
Now, having lived over here when they were running trucks bringing this stuff in, 7 to 6 a.m. is better than what we had. It was around 8:30 when the trucks started running when I was a kid coming up. I know it was time for me to go to bed. Gunsmoke was coming on. So that's great. I like that too. The only-
We're also limited as to how late we can take material off-site because it has to get to the landfill before the landfill closes, and that closes at 4:30. So we have to have the last truck leave the site probably about 3:45 in order to get there and dump, or the truck has to come back.
That's really great. Uh, Covering the tires and washing the tires of the truck. That hasn't been done in this area ever. Anytime construction was done, we saw it tracked all the way it'll be tracked from Bingham Street to wherever they enter to go on the highway to go to Ashford. So I think you took a lot of consideration of what the community residents wanted to do. And I am very proud of the past city council and this city council on being able to let their work flow on. We're not losing any money. We're going to be able to keep some of our money. Guarantee?
We're gonna work it out.
All right. We're going to be able to keep that money that we've already got. I like that. I don't like giving money back. So you satisfied me there. And then phase 3, that's what you're working on now.
No, phase 1 is what we're gonna start
Working
on.
now.
Phase 2 is the topping of the pile. Phase 3 is the first third of the big excavation. So it would be this area right in here, and that would be excavated to depth, and then clean material placed back in the excavation.
And one thing that I heard the neighbor concerned about was that Hampton School. Hampton School has always been the lesson of the big problem. So I can see you going in there straightening that out. Maybe somebody might want to buy that lot after you straighten it out. Could we use that money to, if we sold it, use that money to come over here and help us out?
I think that concern has been raised, and that's something that our council folks are looking at to make a decision on that. But nothing can be done until it's done.
It's done, yeah. But at least it's on the table, and that's something we can come back at these folks for if it don't happen. So I think that you guys have done a great job. I was sure Cecil was going to do her very best. I was going to have to stop buying pies at the farmer's market. Just a joke. You know I love your mother. I still buy. And when Crystal was here the last time, I said, let Cecil know I'm there. I'm standing in the corner, waving at us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you again. So I appreciate, again, the transparency. Do you live in this area?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you live in this area? Yep. But in this area? Do you live in this area? Okay. Do you live in this area? Okay. I'm not asking that to be funny.
No, I know.
There is a young man who lives in this area whose family works in the community. They have to shower before they enter their homes. They have to remove their clothes. They have a sickness that had not been diagnosed in this city because of not just the lead, but also the arsenic that was found. I understand the data, and I understand topography because I went to school for drafting, so I know what these maps mean. And to my community, if you don't know what they mean, the picture with the hedge, with the trevine through it, could you show that again?
This one or this
The
one?
first, that one right there, downward. This, to me, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say this, looks like a Band-Aid, and this is why. Because when the city tore down half of Smith Homes, they didn't cover it up. And they promised a senior citizen property over there that still has not come to fruition. And I'm getting there, I'm landing. That, by minimum, is how much money to even get to this phase?
This is in the first phase.
And how much did that cost?
It's all integrated into the first phase. I
Okay,
can't-
do me a favor, can you go back to the slide where the prices are broken down based by phase? I think you might have just passed it. Okay, so phase one, pending bid.
Oh, hold on, I don't think we have that anymore.
Wait, pause. Go. Okay, so I could be mistaken. We can even, oh, you know what? Even just stop right there. Because again, I'm familiar with how these things work. When you talk about materials and contract bidding, I'm going to estimate anywhere a minimum $17 million is what I saw up there was a number, and that's to get to the proceedings of phase one at minimum. We're going to have to ask for this money, and mind you, we're talking about tentative timelines, which means that we have not yet received said funding. Though I am fully aware that there is money to the side.
No, we have received some. We've received $10 million already.
So as I just said, I'm aware there is some money set to the side, but we have not fully received the money to initiate phase one as it stands today because we're still waiting on competitive bids. And I understand that. I understand what that means. So I'm glad that you stopped right here because today is March the 30th, okay? So that means we're coming up on the public comment period, a meeting led by the NCDEQ, which would put us in early April. Then your bid packages will be made public to share. My concern with this is you're coming in here showing us pictures that have already been completed, designs that have already been rendered by contractors, and the community was not made aware of these particular designs before they were made. And this is why it's important, because we live here. And I think in the very first meeting, brother here even said, believe it or not, as nice as that looks, we don't want you to cover it up. Because what we've had to deal with, and I'm 33 years old, and my anger is not towards you, sir, and it's not towards any of you in Park and Recs. Hear me out. I want a class action lawsuit. That's what I want. This is not enough for me. But because we're not there yet, and there's no statute of limitations on that, so it would come at some point, I want the people to see the process being done, because you know what that comes with? Transparency and accountability, sir.
Absolutely.
And I think the community deserves to see it being done because we believe what they tell us. What they tell us, mother, believe half of what you see. And it's easy to put that behind the Trevine. It is. It's a very nice one. But then, if I'm not mistaken, that means that will also be open to the public during the commission?
No.
So the trail will be closed until the first phase was done?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I think we talked about that in the first meeting as well. So understanding that and the timeline that it's taking, are we truly looking at the 2030 deadline? Because as we know, if we're paying attention to statistics right now, the cost of materials is going up. With what's going on currently, and this is a nonpartisan conversation, but if you do not know what the Strait of Hormuz is, we are not going to be able to get certain things like fertilizer in a timely fashion. And I don't care what nobody say. We've seen this playbook before. It's going to take at least 3 to 8 years minimum to fix what's already being broken. So is it safe then to say that that timeline may not be reasonable, one? And then two, would you all be opposed to maybe not initially trying to cover that eyesore up? I know it might be an eyesore to some, but this is a reality to us.
Can I get some clarification? Cover up what eyesore?
So as you're doing the process of excavating in Bingham Park, the outside hedge that you're going to create would essentially, if you hold that bottom picture up again.
This is after fully grown trees are there. I mean,
So in the meantime, even more clarification, thank you. So we're going to plant them as young trees, and they're going to grow into this image we see in here. So in the meantime, then, we would pretty much be seeing things as they were happening. It wouldn't be like a closed site type thing.
No. You'll be able to see everything. We're actually going to have staff on site that if you have questions, concerns, comments, you can reach out to them and get responses that day.
Mm-hmm.
If you have concerns about somebody that the trucks are tracking through your neighborhood, they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And not according to our route that we already have pre-described, we'll have somebody on site that can field those questions and get a response immediately. That was a commitment we made like years ago when we started talking about this with the EJ team, is that we were not going to leave the community like high and dry. We want to have this ongoing conversation throughout the process, quarterly updates, all this stuff, throughout the duration of the project until I can actually say, thank God, it's all over. Here's your brand new park. Design it any way you want.
Yes, I understand that. I wanted to my point, just say that it's not that we don't believe you. Okay? It's not that we don't believe you. This looks amazing, and I am ecstatic to see it go forward. We do not trust this city. As of April 6th, they're going to start putting chlorine back in our waters without our permission. And a lot of people don't even know that. So this timeline is beautiful. It's very pretty. I do contract events. I know how these things work. And we can't always rely on assumptions. And what I keep hearing is, if we get the money, hopefully, and those key words, they sound nice when they're presented, and you two are doing a phenomenal job. But I even heard when you were stuttering over your words earlier, the young lady had to refer to a slide for you, which lets me know that there are more wheels moving in this machine than we are aware of. And I'm just asking you, in this space where there are fewer of us than there were in the first meeting, that if for any reason this timeline is not met, that we as a community, in some way, shape, or form, can activate to proceed forward. And because we know this sitting council goes under re-election again in 2029, which is when phase 3, was it, Pastor? Getting the money is nice, but what are we going to do to hold these people accountable moving forward? Thank you.
Sorry. That's my last thing. So, first of all, you talked about a nuisance, right? So that's why people travel there more. I just really want to prioritize Bingham Park because that benefits the community. Both of them do benefit the community, but that is more economic if we do Hampton first. And when we're talking about building trust and not trusting Greensboro to do what they say, not only not trusting Greensboro, but historically we know how underrepresented and black communities are treated. And when you keep saying words like she was talking about earlier, like when funding comes, that's not a guarantee. And the way it's looking is that if these spaces traveled more by families in the community, used more, why are we not focusing on that? And then thank you for bringing up, we don't see the exact funds that's already there. So how much is there, right? And we talked about it in the last meeting about how much it costs for Hampton to get done first and why those funds are not being in Bingham Park first, because this whole plan started with Bingham Park.
Well, the whole
plan started with Bingham Park first, right? Then we added it after. We already talked about it. We know that, right? So that's not even a discussion. But now the focus is on Hampton first and not Bingham Park. And I think about when we talk about trust and thinking about this is being done first and wherever in North Carolina, why not focus on the thing that benefits the community, that the community uses most? And I think Bingham Park should be a priority. And I'm going to go back to saying priority mismatch. When the city say they want to build trust, that they want to do the right thing, that they doing this for our community and they see us. But do they really see us? Because this is already going to be done. We are in these meetings so y'all can receive the money, right? These meetings are held so you can say you did a thing, so they can, these, not all together, but basically, right?
No.
So this meeting is not for us to get the funding.
No.
So let me. So I just heard something that you said from you and I think all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
About, so I just heard something that I don't know if you heard, but to answer first to the last thing, no, this meeting is not about getting funding at all. The reason for this meeting is to get information from the community because the state isn't going to act. Richard just told y'all the state is not going to allow any questions or answers to happen. They're just going to say you can either write your question on a piece of paper, hand it in,
And we answer.
and we just gonna sit there and not know what we're gonna get from this because we want to be transparent, right? We did not have to do it, right? This is not to check a box or anything. It was because we genuinely want to hear. We haven't seen each other every week for 6 years, right? So we genuinely want to make sure we hear what you said.
So what is the meetings that we talked about last time that you talked about? You said they want us to hold these meetings with the community?
So the community wants us to have these meetings.
Mhm.
Okay, if I misspoke, I apologize. This is all about getting the community to understand what we're doing and the approach moving forward. It has nothing to do with funding. Funding are by these lovely ladies over here. Sorry, and gentlemen, I apologize. they're the keepers of the purse string from the city perspective, and then us engaging with DEQ and see if there's any additional funds that they could release to us. I don't think they will, because again, they're strapped, and federal funds, I don't think we're going to be, especially with the current administration, I don't think you're going to be getting those type of funds in the near future.
So funds are looking slim.
Well, yeah.
I don't have a mic on, but the other piece was you mentioned you Bingham and Hampton, right? I just want to make sure that it's clear that even so, Hampton, it was always on the table, always on the table. I know it sounds like we obtained it later, we obtained it as a city property later, but it has always been on the table because the state has had it as a part of the property because it was always a part of Bingham Park. That's one thing. And then the other piece was the amount of money that it is taking to remediate Hampton. It is so much smaller.
The amount is about $3 million.
That part, hold on, Rich. That part, it is so much smaller that even if we did not touch Hampton at all, right, and took every single cent that is going towards Hampton and put it towards Bingham, if it was only what was there, it wouldn't do next to nothing, right? So that's what so when you say that Hampton is like it might be like pulling resources, like the idea that Hampton is pulling resources from Bingham isn't true. It is a part of the whole, and is a very small part of the whole. And even if we took it out, the amount of waste that we would then be able to take from Bingham because we didn't do Hampton it's not a lot, right? And so it makes more sense for the reasons that somebody just said earlier. Well, can we then take it if we do something with it, if we want to sell it in the future, it has to be cleaned up. So now when it's a brand new clean piece of property, they can decide we want to sell it to a developer for X million, and then now we can take that funds and then put it over in Bingham. You see what I'm saying? So it's not that we want to prioritize one over the other or anything like that. It is a big problem. It's a big problem, that site and that site, and we're just trying to make sure, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And this is a big elephant, and we're just taking bites of it. Bite of this one, bite of that one.
To put things in perspective, if we were to take every penny from the remediation of Hampton School and move it to remediate over here, we would be able to remediate this much of that portion of the pile. That's it.
So what's the amount? Like, why are we not seeing
$3.2 million based on DEQ's estimate from about 3 years ago for Hampton School alone.
So has that changed?
Well, all the costs have fluctuated, and it gets complicated because the rates that DEQ was using versus the preferred rates that we have, that's why we have the consulting engineers running mass balance equations on the entire thing to try to get the biggest bang for your buck. I don't see any benefit to the community to just remediate this little strip when you still have all of this that still has to be remediated. When you have a property that you can sell or do something with, I'm not going to hand tie anybody, and we can remediate Hampton School and do all that we talked about, with this being the next phase, that to me makes more financial and environmental sense.
That makes sense, right? And I understand what you're saying, but I just see like the benefit from the community, just like he talked about. Like, that's a space that's still used, that's still contaminated, right? So it's like, if people are using it and risking still, then why not make that a priority? That's all.
Just a comment. There's an old African proverb that says that if you look for ghosts long enough, you will find them. I'm 87 years old. And so I came up through a period where there was no antibiotics, there was no vaccines, and the generation before me lost their teeth and had to get plates. People don't want vaccines now, so we got measles and we got diphtheria and we got polio and all of these things are raging now that existed when I was growing up. And the reason at 87 that I have teeth is because they put chlorine in the water. They put chlorine in the water. Otherwise, I would be wearing partials like the generations before me. So, there are things that benefit us, and we need to recognize them, and we don't need to go back to the past. All of the measles, diphtheria, whooping cough, and all of these things that I experienced as a kid went away. And now they're coming back because we are rejecting pure science. Pure science. I'm a scientist. And I believe in science. And I don't believe in going to the internet and getting stuff that somebody just believe. I know what science is, So, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I was at, I think, the 5th, March 5th, and I missed the other one. How old did you say you are? 33? She's 33. I'm 70. Right over here at Bingham Park, right over in here, all that stuff they talking about, I played in that, all on top of it. Why? Because we lived on Bingham Street, and the apartments, what they got there now, that ain't what was there. That was all that I had to play in. And they're going to say they started it as a park in the 70s. Well, why was I on it? This is a merry-go-round. What's that thing you go around and falling off and getting all hurt up if it wasn't a park? And what I did after that meeting, since that meeting, I rode around. Because one thing I have is a good memory. That hill, that Bingham, that hill, it ain't the same. That hill is moving. That hill is moving down. I'm telling you. I played on it. Oh yeah, and I played in the water too. Went up under the creeks and I did all of that. But I'm telling you, is that stuff moving? Are y'all aware? Because that hill it's not a hill. It looks like that now. And it originally didn't look like that. That basketball court didn't look like it looked. That basketball court is flattening. So if it's flattening, that's going down. Because the way it originally was, when we would come and play, like we get tired of the merry-go-round, whatever that thing is, we would go on the hill, up on the hill. It ain't no hill no more. That's just like it's coming down, and it's. I mean, and then my next question is this: if you saying y'all gonna do this in phases, which I don't need this, y'all gonna do this in phases? Okay, if y'all start with that first phase, and y'all don't get the money.
Hold on, I'm going back. This is the first phase. So all of this will be done in the first phase. This material and the yellow will be consolidated on the middle. Everything in green is going to be taken off for proper disposal. This is going to be relocated up onto the main pile.
So you're gonna put that on top of it.
Yes.
So this is this is, you asked about the first phase, so he took you to the first phase. The green part is what the state is funding. That's already been secured. Then the council has committed to an additional amount, which this yellow part, they were going to take that yellow part and put it on the pink. Instead, the yellow will now become green because it will be removed, it will be moved away. This right here, yellow and green, takes about 18 months, right, to do. So in that 18-month period, council will be working so that by the time they finish this, we'll be falling into phase 3. My comment when I stood up before is that I think that we have phase 3 figured out. I'm not going to tell you that until I have a guarantee, which is why I'm not standing here saying it now. But what I am saying is that we have been actively working to start addressing phase 3 so that the digging doesn't have to stop. So you've got 18 months of green and yellow. 18 months of green and yellow. That's going to happen. The yellow is now turned into green based on the financial commitment of council. We've already committed to it. We just have to vote on it. We can't vote on it until June because it's coming out of a different budget. That's the only reason why it doesn't exist now. But we have the votes and the commitment from the current council to remove the yellow. So it's not going to be piled on to make the hill. It's going to be removed. 18 months. So then 18 months, we're now working on phase 3, which is, click it, Richard. Phase 3. That's what council's working on right now for funding. I hope that before we even break ground, we will have a solution about phase 3. Then you can add 6 months to that. So now we're talking about 24 months, 2 years. We have now to work on phase 4. Council does. In that 2 years, we hope to be able to come back to you and say, we figured phase 4 out. It is not, I mean, I hear the apprehension, but we've already done a lot of work as council, and I don't want that to be missed on what we've done so far. We have pushed our financial folks to find $5 million to take away the yellow part. That wasn't done before.
Actually, you're doing more than that. So going back to,
This light is
phase
killing
2 is actually the removal of the top of the mountain that's already there. So not just the yellow that was on the sides, but we're also topping that mountain so you'll be able to see from English to Bingham Street. There won't be the hill in the way.
So the only thing that's holding that up is a vote. And that vote can't happen until around June-ish. So, but you have 4 council members here. You've seen other council members. We are all collectively in agreement that we are going to support the financial help to get rid of that hill. And we're working on 3 now. So I think to have confidence in council and the commitment that we've made, because we've already shown you that we have dealt with 2 phases already, almost with completion of 3. When we're talking about the Hampton school property, it would benefit us to be able to use that funding from that property to pay for this. If we care about Bingham Park, if Bingham Park is what we want to do, fully remediated, we can't do it without money. So we're looking at all financial resources that we can garner. Hampton property is one of those financial resources that we can use to leverage 3 or 4. What I'm talking about has nothing to do with Hampton Park as far as we being close to 3. But I will not bring anything to you all as a group until it is a guarantee. I can say a lot of stuff is in the works. But until I know it's money in the bag, I'm not going to tell you that. But I can tell you with confidence that council is working to get to stage 5. And we're working relentlessly to get to stage 5. Has it happened today? No. It has not happened today, but I offer that you should have confidence in council because one, we've already addressed two, and we've only been here not even 6 months. And we've already gotten stage 2 complete. And we're working on 3. So I'm asking for you to have that confidence and assurity and let us move down the line to make this happen. So I just want to, okay. Does that help? Okay. Uh-oh.
No, so the pink is already there. So we would, and let me, so unfortunately they're not back to back, so I have to kind of flip back and forth here. So the pink is already there. We're going to be remediating around the edge in phase 1. Phase 2 is that we're not relocating this stuff on top of what's already there, but we're removing that for off-site disposal, and we're cutting all this stuff off so it looks, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. So it actually is this all being removed. This is what would have been placed on top, that's being removed, and the pink is what's there, and we're removing that down to basically a flat, almost a flat surface across of Bingham Park. No.
Back then, we aren't able to speak back then, but
Well, so all the studies that DEQ and the city has done shows that the contamination in the soil does not get into the water. We have groundwater wells out there, and we've taken, I think, between the state and the city, probably about 35 to 40 surface water samples, both up gradient and the park and down gradient, and there's no lead in that water. It's actually cleaner downstream than it is upstream because of other like oils and stuff like that that come off the road into the creek. It has nothing to do with the contamination that was identified on Bingham Park.
all right. So, one more.
Hey, sorry. My name is David Kraft, and right behind us is a special place that I haven't really heard mentioned a whole lot, Maplewood Cemetery. I went out there probably 40 years ago with my dad. He planted about 500 trees in Green Hill Cemetery right near downtown. That was kind of his hobby, and decided that he'd run out of room, so he talked to the cemetery manager and he started planting trees in Maplewood. And our volunteer group at Green Hill has been watering and labeling and maintaining and doing different things. So I'm over here a couple times a month. But we have a group that does gravestone restoration in Green Hill, and we've been written up in a couple magazines, and I see things in there that we could do in Maplewood, kind of spread the love. And if anyone is interested in talking about getting a little group together and maybe take a walk and in there and look at some ways to make it a better place to visit. Maplewood is sold out. There are no spaces for sale. That doesn't mean that there are not burials in there. Spaces were sold decades ago. But when things are used less and less, and Green Hill is the same example, it's long sold out, they end up not being taken care of as well. It's just human nature. So we want to see, I'd like to see more activity in Green Hill, more activity in Maplewood. It becomes almost park-like in character. So that's what I wanted to add to the mix. Councilwoman Black, maybe we can talk at some point. I'm going to turn the microphone over, and I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you. All right.
Well, this gentleman in the back first.
Yep. And then we are going to be respectful of the time. Which, yep. You good?
My name is Max Sims. Been doing economic development here in East Greensboro for some time. And I want to tell you, we are light years from where we were a few months ago. And we want to thank the team about your credit, and we deserve to give them a round of applause for the work they've done and where they put this to get back together. You may not recognize this, but this will have an economic development effect on East Greensboro, a tremendous one on that. And that was one of our concerns some time ago when we didn't have this plan on board. But economic development is important to East Greensboro. This is one of the first stages, so I want to thank all of you putting this together and the efforts. Thank you.
The pink has to have a liner material over top, and then there is going to be about 12 to 18 inches of soil placed on top. So that liner material and that soil acts as a barrier to prevent potential exposure until we can hopefully very quickly get it all removed. But yes.
So the reason I'm asking is because I think I made a statement to you in the very first meeting in Fifth. North Carolina reported its hottest summer. In fact, meteorologists are in a good way joking that's the coldest summer that we'll have for the rest of the month. Understanding that environmental changes are happening at a rapid effect, obviously none of us have any control, right? Will there, in addition to the community alert systems, as well as the supervisor on standby, which should all also be open to an oversight committee that is community that has maybe a direct line to everyone, and it is not just it's bigger than business. That's what I think the overwhelming thing is. Again, we appreciate that the council are moving rapidly on this matter. We appreciate everyone who knew the positions and expedite this really. But this has been going on since the 20s. And it is known that the people who put the landfill there knew exactly what the repercussions were and did it anyways. And so what we're trying to keep is generations of hurt. That I understand that maybe we all not possible, but in this sake of transparency, with that liner option, of course, the cap and cover, I know you said that we'd be able to access it, we couldn't dig on it, or you couldn't recommend long-term periods of exposure. Will those types of things also be made plain to the people? And they're already jumping the fences.
So the state requires there be land use restrictions put in place on designated portions of the property. That is a requirement for the remedial action work plan. That also has to be maintained and monitored every year and certified back to the state. So if we see that an area is eroding, which we don't envision, especially if we top everything, the likelihood of any type of erosion gets reduced because you've taken away the potential for erosion. By removing that potential, and having the ability to monitor it, you really take your potential risk almost, I don't want to say to zero. I'm a scientist. There's always something out there.
Yep. All right. So, hey, everybody, thank you all for being here tonight. Please look out for the next opportunity for the meetings with NCDEQ. Thank you to New Hope for hosting us this evening. And Ms. Pat